The interrogation chamber on Station Zenith was designed to be intimidating. Walls of polished obsidian reflected distorted images back at anyone unlucky enough to be seated in the central dock. Dr. Maya Rodriguez sat in that dock now, her wrists bound by what the Galactic Enforcement Division called compliance restraints, though she preferred to think of them as very expensive handcuffs. Around her, arranged in a semicircle of judgment, sat the Biological Threat Assessment Committee. 12 species, each one representing a different branch of galactic civilization, each one currently staring at her like she was a particularly interesting microbe under a microscope. Committee Chairman Vrel, a Korvathi whose chitinous exoskeleton gleamed purple under the harsh lighting, clicked his mandibles together in what Maya had learned was their version of clearing their throat. "Dr. Rodriguez," he began, his translator rendering his voice as a deep baritone, "you stand before this committee charged with biological fraud and species misrepresentation." "How fascinating," Maya said, leaning back as much as her restraints allowed. "I do not remember lying on any forms." "You claimed," Vrel continued, ignoring her interruption, "that humanity qualifies as a Tier 3 species under galactic survival classification. You listed humans as persistence predators with advanced threat response capabilities. Committee member Shiva, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish made of liquid silver, pulsed with colors Maya was pretty sure indicated amusement. "Our xenobiologists have reviewed your species extensively," Shiva's voice chimed like bells. "You are mammals, soft-bodied, slow-moving, with no natural defenses. You lack venom, you lack armored hide, you lack even basic bioweapon production." Representative Corin, whose species resembled a cross between a mantis and a small dragon, leaned forward. "Our analysis is conclusive. Humans are prey species suffering from delusions of adequacy." The laughter started then. Not cruel exactly, more like the kind of indulgent chuckling adults give to children who claim they will grow up to be dinosaurs. Committee member Threx, a plant-based intelligence from the Verdant Collective, actually shook with what Maya assumed was mirth, shedding small leaves onto the floor. "Persistence predators?" Threx's voice rustled like wind through grass. "Your species cannot even regenerate lost limbs." "A Tier 3 classification," Shiva added, still pulsing with amusement, "requires proof of biological resilience, adaptive capability, and survival mechanisms worthy of respect. You have provided none of this." Maya sat very still during the laughter. Her expression had not changed, but something in her eyes had shifted, something that made the enforcement officers standing by the doors grip their weapons a little tighter. "Are you finished?" Maya asked quietly. The laughter died down to uncomfortable chuckling. "Because if we are done with the stand-up comedy portion of this hearing," she continued, her voice carrying an edge that could cut atmosphere, "I would love to discuss exactly why humanity qualifies for Tier 3 status, and probably why you should have done better research before you decided to mock us." Chairman Vrel's mandibles clicked in what might have been annoyance. "Very well, human. Enlighten us. What possible biological advantage does your species possess?" Maya smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Let us start with something simple. How many of you have ever been sick?" The question clearly confused the committee. Corin's head tilted at an angle that would have broken a human neck. "Sick?" "Ill," Maya clarified. "Infected by a pathogen, invaded by a virus or bacteria, made ill by microscopic organisms." The committee exchanged glances. Shiva pulsed a soft blue. "Such things are rare among civilized species. Our immune systems are adequate for our native pathogens. Cross-species contamination is nearly impossible due to biological incompatibility." "Adequate," Maya repeated, and her smile widened. "Let me tell you about the human immune system, and why you should all be very, very glad that cross-species contamination is nearly impossible." She leaned forward as much as her restraints allowed. "The human body," she began, "is under constant attack. Every second of every day, we are being invaded by bacteria, viruses, fungi, parasites, and things we have not even named yet. The air we breathe is full of them. The water we drink carries them. The food we eat is covered in them." Threx's leaves rustled nervously. "This sounds like a death sentence for a species." For most species, it would be, Maya agreed. But humans evolved in what we lovingly call a biological war zone. Earth is a Class 7 death world by your own classification. Hot, cold, wet, dry, and absolutely teeming with microscopic things that want to eat us from the inside out. Committee member Zephix, a crystalline being who had not spoken yet, chimed in with a voice like breaking glass. If your world is so hostile, how did your species survive? We adapted, Maya said simply. Our immune system is not adequate. It is not sufficient. It is a highly trained, incredibly aggressive, absolutely ruthless military force that operates inside every single human body, every single second of every single day. The committee was silent now, the laughter completely gone. Let me give you some numbers, Maya continued. The average human body contains approximately 37 trillion cells. Give or take. That is trillion with a T. Impressive, Vrel said, though he sounded uncertain. Now, Maya's smile grew sharper. Let me tell you about the cells specifically dedicated to killing things. White blood cells, various types, constantly patrolling our bloodstream looking for invaders. Natural killer cells that destroy infected cells on contact. T cells that remember every pathogen we have ever encountered and can mobilize within hours to destroy it again. B cells that produce antibodies, custom-designed biological weapons targeted at specific threats. She paused for effect. On any given day, the human immune system identifies and destroys thousands of potentially lethal threats. Cancer cells that could become tumors, bacteria that could cause sepsis, viruses that could shut down organs. We do this automatically, without thinking, while we sleep, while we eat, while we go about our lives completely unaware that we are winning dozens of microscopic battles every single hour. Shiva's pulsing had slowed to an uncertain flicker. This seems like an exhausting way to exist. Oh, it gets better, Maya said cheerfully. See, the thing about human immune systems is they do not just fight off infections, they remember them. We call it adaptive immunity. Once a human is exposed to a pathogen, their body creates a permanent record of it. We keep wanted posters of every microscopic criminal that has ever tried to invade us. Corin's scales rippled with what might have been concern. Permanent records? For how long? Life, Maya said simply. A human who survives measles as a child will be immune to measles for the rest of their life, sometimes 70, 80, 90 years. Our immune systems hold grudges that last decades. The silence in the chamber had shifted from amused to uncomfortable. But wait, Maya continued, there is more. Not only do we remember pathogens, we share that information. When a human mother is pregnant, she passes antibodies to her child through the placenta and later through breast milk. We are literally giving our children biological weapons training before they are old enough to walk. Representative Corin made a sound like rocks grinding together. You arm your offspring? Against microscopic threats, absolutely, Maya confirmed. Because on Earth, those microscopic threats are everywhere, and they are vicious. Let me tell you about some of the things humanity has survived. She started counting on her fingers, even though her wrists were restrained. The Black Death, a bacterial pandemic that killed 30 to 60% of Europe's population in the 14th century. Humans who survived passed on genetic advantages to their descendants. Smallpox, a virus so lethal it killed 300 million people in the 20th century alone. Humans created a vaccine and eradicated it completely. That is right. We hunted a virus to extinction. The Spanish flu of 1918 killed 50 million people worldwide. Humans adapted, survived, and kept going. Threx's leaves were now a sickly brown color. Your species has survived multiple extinction-level plagues. Multiple, Maya repeated. And those are just the famous ones. Every year, humans deal with influenza, common colds, bacterial infections, fungal infections, parasitic infections. We have entire buildings called hospitals dedicated to fighting these things. We have a whole branch of science called immunology just to study how we defend ourselves. We have another branch called epidemiology to track how diseases spread. We have pharmacology to create drugs to help our immune systems win. Chairman Vrel's mandibles had stopped clicking entirely. This is why you claim Tier 3 status? Because you survive diseases? No, Maya said, and her voice dropped to something colder. I claim Tier 3 status because human immune systems do not just defend, they attack. She let that hang in the air for a moment. Let me tell you about autoimmune disorders. Sometimes the human immune system gets confused. It identifies our own tissues as threats, and when that happens, our own bodies wage war against themselves. Rheumatoid arthritis, our immune system attacks our joints. Type 1 diabetes, it destroys insulin-producing cells in the pancreas. Multiple sclerosis, it attacks the protective covering of nerves. Shiva's form had gone completely still. Your bodies attack themselves? And we survive, Maya emphasized. We develop treatments, we manage symptoms, we adapt. Because the alternative is to have a weak immune system, and on Earth, a weak immune system is a death sentence. Zephix's crystalline form refracted light in patterns that suggested deep concern. How do humans survive to adulthood with such aggressive internal defenses? We do not just survive, Maya corrected. We thrive. Current human population is approximately 11 billion and growing. We have colonized every continent on our planet, from the frozen Arctic to the scorching Sahara Desert. We live in rainforests full of parasites, in cities packed so densely that disease should spread like wildfire, in environments that would kill most species within days. And our immune systems keep us alive through all of it. She leaned back, her expression thoughtful. Oh, and I should mention allergies. Sometimes human immune systems react to completely harmless substances, pollen, dust, certain foods. The immune response can be so aggressive it causes anaphylactic shock, which can kill us. Corin's voice was barely a whisper. Your immune systems can accidentally kill you? Yep, Maya said brightly. And we invented a drug called epinephrine that we carry around in little injectors just in case we need to stop our own immune systems from killing us after we accidentally eat a peanut. The committee members were no longer looking at Maya with amusement. They were looking at her the way prey animals looked at apex predators. But here's the really fun part, Maya continued, clearly enjoying herself now. Human immune systems can be trained. We invented something called vaccination. We deliberately introduce weakened or dead pathogens into our bodies so our immune systems can practice killing them. We train our biological defenses the way you would train soldiers. Representative Corin's scales had turned a dull gray. You intentionally infect yourselves. For practice? Exactly, Maya grinned, and it works beautifully. We have eliminated or nearly eliminated dozens of diseases that used to kill millions. Polio, measles, mumps, rubella, diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis. We hunted them down systematically and destroyed them. Chairman Vrel's voice had lost all its earlier confidence. This committee may have underestimated the biological resilience of your species. Oh, we are just getting started, Maya said. Let me tell you about what happens when humans get really sick. When a major infection occurs, the human body initiates something called a fever response. We literally cook the pathogens by raising our core temperature. Most invading organisms cannot survive the heat. Threx made a sound like wind through dead branches. You boil yourselves? To around 103, 104 degrees Fahrenheit if necessary, Maya confirmed. Sometimes higher. It is incredibly uncomfortable and potentially dangerous, but it works. We would rather risk cooking ourselves a little bit than let an infection win. And if fever is not enough, Maya continued, we have inflammation responses. Our bodies flood infected areas with white blood cells, causing swelling, redness, pain. It is our immune system carpet bombing the infection site. Sometimes the inflammation is worse than the infection itself, but our bodies do not care. Kill the invader first, deal with collateral damage later. The committee was completely silent now. Shiva's colors had faded to a pale, frightened white. But you want to know the really terrifying part about human immune systems, Maya said quietly. The committee waited, none of them wanting to ask but unable to stop listening. They learn, they adapt, they evolve in real time. She leaned forward again. When a new pathogen appears, something our immune systems have never seen before, there's usually a period where we are vulnerable. Days, maybe weeks, while our bodies figure out how to fight it. During that time, some humans will die. But the ones who survive, their immune systems will have learned how to kill that pathogen. And that information gets passed down genetically to the next generation. Humanity evolves to survive whatever tries to kill us. We have been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years. Corin's voice shook. You have been at war with microscopic organisms for your entire evolutionary history? And we are winning, Maya said with quiet pride. Every plague, every pandemic, every outbreak. We take casualties, yes, but we adapt. We survive. We keep going. She looked around at each committee member in turn. So when you ask why humans qualify for Tier 3 classification, this is why. Not because we have claws or venom or armored hide, but because every single human walking around is surviving a constant biological assault that would kill most species within hours. Our bodies are war zones, our immune systems are armies, and we live with that every single day like it is normal. The silence stretched until Chairman Vrel finally spoke. This committee may need to reconsider its initial assessment. Oh, we are not done yet, Maya said, her smile returning. Because I have not even told you about human gut bacteria. Zephix's crystalline form flickered nervously. Gut bacteria. The average human digestive system, Maya began, contains approximately 100 trillion microorganisms. That is more bacterial cells than human cells in our bodies. We are walking ecosystems. Threx's leaves were now falling off in clumps. You are infected with trillions of bacteria and you consider this normal? Not infected, Maya corrected. Colonized. These bacteria are essential to human survival. They help us digest food, produce vitamins, train our immune systems, and fight off hostile bacteria. We have a symbiotic relationship with trillions of microscopic organisms living inside us. Representative Corin made a noise like a rock slide. This is nightmare fuel. It gets weirder, Maya promised. Some of these gut bacteria can influence human mood and behavior. They produce neurotransmitters that affect our brains. We are not entirely sure how much of human personality is actually controlled by the bacteria living in our intestines. Shiva's form was now pulsing erratically. You are telling us that humans are potentially controlled by their gut bacteria? Not controlled exactly, Maya hedged. Influenced, maybe. The research is still developing. But yes, the microscopic organisms living inside us can affect our thoughts and emotions. The point is, humans do not just survive in a hostile biological environment. We have weaponized it. We have turned it into an advantage. The silence was absolute. Then Zephix asked the question that would haunt the committee for the rest of their existence. What happens when a human immune system encounters something it has never seen before? Something truly alien? Maya's expression grew very serious. That is an excellent question. Let me tell you about cytokine storms. When the human immune system encounters a completely novel threat, something so alien it has no reference point for dealing with it, sometimes it overreacts. It floods the body with so many immune cells and inflammatory signals that it causes massive tissue damage. The immune response itself becomes the threat. We call this a cytokine storm, and it can be lethal. Chairman Vrel's voice was barely audible. Your immune systems can kill you by defending too aggressively? Yep, Maya confirmed. That is actually what killed most victims of the 1918 Spanish flu. Not the virus itself, but the immune system over-response. Healthy young adults with strong immune systems were most at risk because their defenses were too effective. They essentially killed themselves fighting the infection. The committee members looked at each other with expressions that transcended species. This was the look of beings realizing they had made a terrible mistake. So let me make sure I understand your concern, Maya said, her voice carrying the weight of impending doom. You are worried about humans being a weak prey species. But what you should actually be worried about is what happens if a human immune system decides your species is a threat. Corin's scales were now the color of ash. What do you mean? I mean, Maya said slowly, that every human sitting on this station right now, every human walking around in galactic society, is carrying an immune system that has been trained by Earth. A death world. Our bodies are primed to identify and destroy anything that seems even slightly wrong. Threx's voice was like wind through a graveyard. And you believe our species might trigger this response? I do not know, Maya admitted. That is why I argued for proper quarantine protocols in my original report, the one you rejected as alarmist. She let that sink in. See, here's the thing. Human immune systems are adaptable, but they are also aggressive. If a human body encounters alien proteins, alien bacteria, alien anything, there's a non-zero chance it will mount a defense, and human immune responses are not gentle. They are scorched earth policies. Representative Corin's voice shook. What would happen if a human immune system attacked one of our species? Depends on the species, Maya said thoughtfully. For crystalline beings like Zephix, probably nothing major. You are silicon-based. Our immune systems would likely ignore you as non-biological. For plant-based species like Threx, Maya continued, it could be bad. Human immune systems have evolved to handle fungal and bacterial threats that often involve plant-like structures. If a human body decided you were a hostile fungus, the inflammation response alone could be severe. Threx was now completely motionless, no longer even rustling. For species with exoskeletons like Chairman Vrel, Maya turned to the Corvathi. Humans have extensive experience with insect-borne diseases, malaria, dengue fever, Lyme disease, all transmitted by insects. Our immune systems are very, very good at recognizing insect proteins as threats. Vrel's mandibles clicked once involuntarily. And for species like myself, Maya looked at Shiva, whose liquid silver form was barely holding cohesion. Honestly, I have no idea. You do not really have an analog on Earth, which means a human immune system would treat you as a completely novel threat. The silence that followed was the kind that precedes diplomatic incidents. You are saying Shiva's voice was barely a chime, that humans are walking biological weapons? No, Maya corrected. I am saying humans are walking biological war zones that have learned to survive through overwhelming force. There is a difference. She leaned back, suddenly looking tired. Look, I'm not trying to scare you. Well, maybe a little, she admitted with a slight smile. But mostly I'm trying to explain why humanity deserves Tier 3 classification. We are not dangerous because we are strong. We are dangerous because we survive things that should kill us. We adapt to threats that should wipe us out. We live through biological attacks that would end most species. Corin's voice was quiet. What you are describing is not just survival. It is warfare. Yes, Maya agreed. Our bodies are at war, constantly, every second of every day, and we have been at war for so long that we do not even notice it anymore. We just call it living. Chairman Vrel was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke with the voice of someone who had just been shown the abyss. This committee needs to reconvene. We will recess for 1 standard hour to discuss our findings. Maya nodded. Take all the time you need, but while you are discussing, maybe consider this. She waited until every committee member was looking at her. I have been on this station for 6 hours now. In those 6 hours, my immune system has identified and neutralized approximately 400,000 potential threats. Bacteria from the air recyclers, fungal spores from the hydroponic gardens, viral particles from who knows where. I did not even notice. My body just handled it automatically. She smiled, and it was not unkind, just absolutely certain. So when you talk about humans being weak, remember that every single one of us is successfully fighting off a level of biological warfare that would collapse most galactic civilizations. We do this while having conversations, eating meals, and sleeping peacefully. We are so good at surviving that we have forgotten what it is like to be afraid of microscopic threats. The committee filed out in silence. Only Chairman Vrel remained, staring at Maya with something that might have been respect or terror or both. One question, Dr. Rodriguez, he said quietly. If human immune systems are so aggressive, so well trained, so effective at identifying and destroying threats, what happens when you encounter a species you actually want to protect? Maya's smile softened. That is the beautiful part about being human. We can choose. Our immune systems fight automatically, yes, but we also have something most species do not. We have vaccines, immunosuppressants, antihistamines, all sorts of drugs that let us control our immune responses. We have learned to make peace with our own bodies. She met his compound eyes directly. Humans are not just warriors. We are survivors who learned how to stop fighting when necessary. That is what makes us valuable allies. We know how to wage biological warfare, and we know how to prevent it. Vrel was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke with the careful tone of someone choosing words that would shape policy for generations. This committee will recommend approval of humanity's Tier 3 classification, with the additional recommendation that comprehensive medical protocols be established before further human integration into galactic society. Maya nodded slowly. That seems reasonable. I would have suggested the same thing in my original report, the one you called alarmist. Vrel's mandibles clicked in what might have been embarrassment. Perhaps we were hasty in our initial assessment. Perhaps, Maya agreed, but I understand. From the outside, humans do not look dangerous. We do not have natural weapons. We are not physically imposing. We look soft and vulnerable. She paused. But the thing about Earth species, Chairman Vrel, is that we learned a long time ago that the most dangerous threats are not the ones you can see. They are the ones too small to notice until it is too late. Vrel turned to leave, then stopped. One more question, Dr. Rodriguez. Your species has all these aggressive immune defenses, all this biological warfare capability, all this survival adaptation. What is the worst thing a human immune system has ever done? Maya was quiet for a moment, considering. There was a disease called smallpox, she said finally, killed hundreds of millions of people over thousands of years. In the 20th century, humans decided we had had enough. We created a vaccine. We deployed it globally. We hunted smallpox systematically, country by country, region by region, until there was nowhere left for it to hide. She looked up at Vrel. In 1980, the World Health Organization declared smallpox eradicated, completely extinct in the wild. The only samples that exist are in 2 maximum security laboratories under international oversight. We drove a virus to extinction deliberately and methodically. We made it extinct. Vrel's entire exoskeleton seemed to shudder. You genocided a microorganism. We eliminated a threat that had killed hundreds of millions of our people, Maya corrected. And we did it so thoroughly that children born after 1980 do not even need to be vaccinated against it anymore. It is just gone. That, Chairman Vrel, is what human immune systems backed by human intelligence are capable of. We do not just fight diseases. We eradicate them. The chairman left without another word. Maya sat alone in the interrogation chamber, still restrained, but somehow no longer feeling like a prisoner. An hour later, the committee reconvened. The mood had shifted dramatically. Where there had been laughter and dismissal, there was now careful respect and barely concealed concern. Dr. Rodriguez, Chairman Vrel began, his translator carrying a formal tone that had not been there before. This committee has completed its review. After careful consideration of the evidence presented, we have reached several conclusions. Maya waited patiently. First, Vrel continued, humanity's application for Tier 3 species classification under galactic survival standards is hereby approved, effective immediately. Second, mandatory medical protocols will be established for all human and alien interactions. Quarantine periods, biological screening, and immune response monitoring will be required until we better understand cross-species compatibility. Third, and Vrel paused here, his mandibles clicking nervously, this committee formally apologizes for our initial dismissal of your species. Capabilities. We allowed superficial observations to override substantive biological analysis. That was a mistake. Maya smiled. Apology accepted, Chairman. We understand. Humans do not look dangerous at first glance. That is actually one of our advantages. People underestimate us right up until they realize their mistake. Representative Corin leaned forward, his scales still that nervous gray color. Dr. Rodriguez, I must ask, if human immune systems are so effective, why do humans still die from diseases? Excellent question, Maya said. The answer is that Earth is what we call an evolutionary arms race. Pathogens evolve too. Bacteria develop antibiotic resistance. Viruses mutate to evade our immune systems. New diseases emerge constantly. She shrugged. Human immune systems are incredibly effective, but they are not perfect. Sometimes the pathogen wins. Sometimes the immune response is too strong and causes more damage than the disease. Sometimes we just encounter something so novel that our bodies do not have time to mount an effective defense before critical damage is done. But the key word there is sometimes. Most of the time, we win. Shiva's form pulsed a cautious orange. What percentage of microbial infections do humans survive without medical intervention? Maya thought about it. Difficult to say exactly, but probably 95% or higher. Most infections never progress beyond minor symptoms because our immune systems crush them immediately. We only notice the ones that actually make us feel sick. The committee exchanged glances that transcended species. 95%, Threx's voice rustled with something like awe. Your bodies win 95% of biological warfare encounters automatically. At minimum, Maya confirmed. And that is just baseline immune function. With modern medicine, antibiotics, antivirals, vaccines, the survival rate goes even higher. Zephix's crystalline form refracted light in complex patterns. This explains several anomalies in human medical records. We noticed that humans recover from injuries and illnesses at rates we found statistically improbable. Now it makes sense. Your immune systems are not just fighting infections, they are also accelerating healing. Exactly, Maya said, pleased that someone was making the connection. When a human gets injured, the immune system coordinates the entire healing response. Blood clotting, tissue repair, fighting off opportunistic infections. A simple cut that might become a lethal infection for some species is just a minor inconvenience for humans because our immune systems lock down the wound site immediately. She leaned forward. Want to know something wild? Human saliva contains antibacterial compounds. When we get a small cut, our instinct is to lick the wound. We are literally applying topical antibiotics with our own spit, and it works. Corin made that rock slide noise again. You have weaponized your own bodily fluids? Multiple bodily fluids, Maya confirmed cheerfully. Tears contain lysozyme, an enzyme that destroys bacterial cell walls. Stomach acid is strong enough to kill most pathogens we accidentally ingest. Even our skin secretes antimicrobial peptides. The human body is a fortress with multiple layers of active defense. Committee member Shiva pulsed rapidly. This is beginning to make your species' classification of a death world more understandable. If humans evolved these defenses, what must Earth be like? Maya's expression grew distant. Earth is beautiful and absolutely lethal. We have diseases you can catch just by breathing the wrong air, bacterial infections from water that looks perfectly clean, parasites that can enter through your skin, viral diseases transmitted by insects, animals, even other humans. She refocused on the committee. On Earth, a simple scratch can become sepsis if not treated. A mosquito bite can transmit malaria. Contaminated food can cause cholera. We have flesh-eating bacteria, brain-eating amoebas, antibiotic-resistant superbugs, and that is just the microbial threats. We also have venomous animals, poisonous plants, predators, natural disasters. She smiled slightly. Humans learn to survive all of that simultaneously. That is why our immune systems are so aggressive. On Earth, if your immune system is not constantly ready for war, you die. Simple as that. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Then, Chairman Vrel asked the question that had been building throughout the entire hearing. Dr. Rodriguez, if a human were to encounter an alien pathogen, something truly extraterrestrial, what would happen? Maya took a deep breath. Honestly, we do not know for certain. The best-case scenario is that alien biochemistry is so different from Earth biochemistry that our immune systems would not even recognize it as biological. We would be mutually invisible to each other's pathogens. Worst-case scenario? Corin prompted quietly. Worst case, Maya said slowly. A human immune system encounters an alien pathogen it recognizes as a threat but has no existing defense against. What happens then depends on how fast we can adapt. She met each committee member's eyes in turn. Here is what we do know. During the COVID-19 pandemic in the early 2020s, a novel coronavirus emerged, something human immune systems had never encountered before. In the first few months, before we developed vaccines, millions died. But here is the thing. Even without vaccines, human survival rate was over 98%. Our immune systems, encountering a completely novel threat, still won most of the time. Threx's leaves rustled nervously. And the other 2%? Died, Maya said bluntly. That is the cost of biological warfare. Not everyone survives, but the species does. The survivors pass on genetic advantages. The next generation is more resistant. That is how evolution works. Shiva's colors had shifted to a deep, thoughtful purple. You are saying that even a novel alien pathogen would likely not wipe out humanity? Unlikely, Maya confirmed. Some humans would die, yes, but some would survive. And those survivors would have immune systems trained to fight that specific threat. Within a generation, maybe two, humans would have adapted. That is what we do. That is what we have always done. She leaned back. The Black Death killed up to 60% of Europe. Horrific tragedy, but 40% survived, and their descendants have genetic markers that make them more resistant to certain bacterial infections. Spanish flu killed 50 million. Terrible loss, but billions survived, and we developed better medical protocols. COVID-19 killed millions, but we developed vaccines in less than a year and deployed them globally. Representative Corin's voice was quiet. Your species treats extinction-level events as learning experiences. We treat them as challenges to overcome, Maya corrected, because on Earth, extinction-level events are not hypothetical. They are Tuesday. We have survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, climate shifts, and countless plagues. We are still here. We are still growing. We are still spreading across our planet and now into space. Chairman Vrel was silent for a long moment. Then he made a decision that would reshape galactic medical policy for centuries. Dr. Rodriguez, this committee would like to offer you a position as Chief Medical Liaison for Human and Alien Biological Interface Protocols. Your expertise is clearly beyond what we initially recognized. Maya blinked in surprise. That is a significant position. It is a necessary position, Vrel corrected. If humans are going to integrate into galactic society, we need someone who understands both human biology and the concerns of other species, someone who can bridge that gap. She considered it. What would the role entail? Establishing medical screening protocols, Vrel listed. Training alien medical personnel on human biology. Training human medical personnel on alien biology. Researching potential cross-species biological interactions. Developing emergency response procedures for novel pathogen encounters, essentially preventing any biological incidents before they occur. Maya smiled slowly. You want me to make sure human immune systems do not accidentally start a war with alien biology? Among other responsibilities, yes. I accept, Maya said, on one condition. The committee waited. Humans get full Tier 3 status, no probationary period, no additional restrictions beyond the reasonable medical protocols we have discussed, and you acknowledge in the official record that you initially misjudged our species. Vrel's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. You want us to admit we were wrong? I want the record to show that soft-bodied, slow-moving mammals without natural weapons are still capable of surviving in environments that would kill most galactic species, Maya said firmly. I want it documented that biological resilience is not about claws and armor. It is about adaptation and survival. And I want every species in the galaxy to understand that humans earned their classification the hard way, by surviving things that should have killed us and coming back stronger. The committee members looked at each other. Then, one by one, they indicated agreement. Chairman Vrel spoke formally. Let the record show that the Biological Threat Assessment Committee initially underestimated humanity based on superficial physical assessment. Further investigation revealed that humans possess extraordinary biological resilience, adaptive immune systems, and survival capabilities that fully justify Tier 3 species classification. He paused. Let the record also show that this committee recommends other species approach human biology with appropriate caution and respect. "Thank you," Maya said quietly. "Now, can someone please remove these restraints? They are starting to chafe." As the enforcement officers moved to release her, Shiva pulsed a curious yellow. "Dr. Rodriguez, one final question, if I may." "Of course. What is the most dangerous disease humans have ever encountered?" Maya thought about it. Depends on how you measure dangerous. Highest body count? Probably malaria, which has killed more humans than any other disease in history. Still kills hundreds of thousands per year. Most lethal per infection? Probably rabies, which has a nearly 100% fatality rate once symptoms appear. Most difficult to treat? Maybe prion diseases like Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, which are essentially untreatable and always fatal. But Shiva pressed, "Which one scares humans the most?" Maya's expression grew serious. "Ebola, maybe. Or one of the hemorrhagic fevers, diseases that kill fast and messy, that make the human body destroy itself. Those are the ones that scare us because they are visible reminders that sometimes even our immune systems are not enough." She stood, rubbing her wrists where the restraints had been. "But here's the thing that should really concern you. Every disease I just mentioned, humans have survived exposure to. People have walked away from rabies infections with experimental treatments. We have developed protocols for containing Ebola outbreaks. We are researching treatments for prion diseases." She looked around at the assembled committee. There is no disease on Earth that humans have encountered and said, "Okay, this one beat us, we give up." We fight every single one. Sometimes we lose battles, but we are winning the war. The committee was silent, absorbing this information. Then Threx spoke, voice rustling like autumn leaves. "Humanity is terrifying." Maya smiled. "Humanity is resilient. There is a difference. We do not try to be terrifying. We just try to survive. The fact that our survival mechanisms look terrifying from the outside is not really our concern." As Maya walked toward the exit, now a free citizen and newly appointed Chief Medical Liaison, Representative Coran called out, "Dr. Rodriguez, one more thing." She turned back. "Yes?" Corin's scales had returned to a more normal green color, but his voice still carried uncertainty. "What happens if humans encounter a species with immune systems as aggressive as yours? Do you think that is possible?" Maya considered the question carefully. "Honestly, I hope so. It would be fascinating from a research perspective, and it would be nice to meet a species that understands what it is like to exist in a constant state of biological warfare." She paused at the door. "But I should warn you. If humans ever do meet a species with immune systems as aggressive as ours, the galaxy should probably prepare for either the greatest medical collaboration in history or the most elaborate biological Cold War ever conceived. Because humans are very good at two things, making friends and making sure threats know not to mess with us. Which one happens depends entirely on whether that other species wants to share research or compare weapons." With that, she left. The committee sat in silence for a long time after she was gone. Finally, Shiva spoke, colors pulsing a nervous orange. "Did we just approve the galactic integration of a species that casually discusses biological warfare as a normal part of existence?" "Yes," Chairman Vrel said quietly. "Yes, we did." And Corin added, voice still shaking slightly, "Did she just threaten a biological Cold War as a casual possibility?" Threx's leaves rustled weakly. "I think that was less a threat and more a prediction. Zephix's crystalline form refracted light in anxious patterns. Perhaps we should review the medical protocols more thoroughly." "Perhaps," Vrel agreed. "But first, I think we should all undergo comprehensive biological screening. If human immune systems are even half as aggressive as Dr. Rodriguez described, I want to know how our species might react to human presence before we proceed further with integration." The committee agreed unanimously. As they filed out, Shiva pulsed one final observation. You know what the truly terrifying part is? The others waited. Humans think all of this is normal. They live with immune systems waging constant warfare inside their bodies, and they just call it being healthy. They survive plagues that kill millions, and they call it a bad year. They exist in a state of biological siege, and they call it life. Vrel's mandibles clicked slowly. That, Representative Shiva, is what makes them Tier 3. Not their weapons or their technology or their physical capabilities, but their absolute, fundamental, unshakable belief that surviving the impossible is just what you do. They do not see themselves as warriors or survivors or anything special. They just see themselves as human, and that, perhaps, is the most dangerous thing about them. The committee left the interrogation chamber. Behind them, the enforcement officers began cleaning up. One of them, a young Korvathi, named Zrel, turned to his partner. Do you think humans are really that dangerous? The partner, an older Verdant Collective member named Moss, rustled thoughtfully. I think humans are dangerous in ways we did not expect. Not because they want to harm anyone, but because they exist in a state of controlled biological chaos that they have mistaken for normalcy. Zrel clicked his mandibles nervously. Should we be worried? Moss's leaves moved in a gesture that might have been a shrug. Worried? Maybe, but also hopeful. If humans can survive everything their death world threw at them and still maintain compassion, curiosity, and the desire to cooperate with other species, perhaps they will teach the rest of us something valuable. Zrel considered this. What could they possibly teach us? How to survive when survival should be impossible, Moss said quietly. How to adapt when adaptation seems futile. How to keep going when everything is trying to kill you. He paused. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Perhaps we need allies who are not afraid of danger because they have lived with it their entire evolutionary history. Maybe humans are not the threat we should fear. Maybe they are the defenders we did not know we needed. In her new quarters, Dr. Maya Rodriguez sat at a desk reviewing the medical protocols she would need to establish. The task was enormous. Hundreds of alien species, thousands of potential biological interactions, millions of possible complications. But she smiled as she worked, because this was what humans did. They looked at impossible challenges and said, "Okay, let us figure this out." She pulled up a blank document and began typing. Title: Comprehensive Guide to Human Immune System Responses for Non-Human Medical Personnel. Subtitle: Why Your Patient is Not Dying, They Are Just Human. She laughed quietly to herself and kept writing. After all, someone had to explain to the galaxy that humans were not trying to be intimidating. They were just trying to live. And if living required maintaining a military-grade immune system in a constant state of readiness, well, that was just part of being human. Somewhere in the station's medical bay, an alarm went off. A Korvathi patient had been exposed to something in the human quarters and was experiencing an allergic reaction. Dr. Rodriguez was called immediately. As she rushed to the medical bay, she could not help but think that this was exactly why she had pushed for Tier 3 status. Not to prove humans were dangerous, but to prove that humans understood danger intimately enough to help others survive it. Because that was the real secret of human immune systems. They were not just weapons. They were survival tools refined over millions of years of evolution, and humans were very, very good at sharing their survival tools with others. She arrived at the medical bay to find the Korvathi patient stable but confused. "Doctor," the patient's translator rendered his voice as anxious. "What happened?" "I believe," Maya said gently, checking his readings. "You encountered human skin bacteria. Probably from contact with a surface in human living quarters. Your immune system reacted to proteins it did not recognize." The patient's mandibles clicked in distress. "Am I dying?" "No," Maya smiled reassuringly. "You are experiencing what humans call an allergic reaction. Uncomfortable, but not life-threatening in your case. I'm going to give you an antihistamine to calm your immune response and some anti-inflammatory medication to reduce the swelling. You will be fine in a few hours." As she administered the treatment, the Korvathi looked at her with something like wonder. How do humans survive if they encounter unknown proteins all the time? Practice, Maya said simply. Lots and lots of practice. This is why we need the medical protocols, so incidents like this become routine rather than emergencies. The patient relaxed as the medication took effect. Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. You are welcome, Maya said. And welcome to the complicated, messy, occasionally allergenic reality of cross-species interaction. It is going to be an interesting future. As she left the medical bay, Maya pulled out her personal communicator and sent a message to her family back on Earth. You will never guess what happened today. I got humanity classified as Tier 3 survivors and accidentally started a galactic medical revolution by explaining how immune systems work. Also, I might have terrified an entire committee by casually discussing plagues. Pretty normal Tuesday. The response came back almost immediately. Her sister's message was brief and very characteristic. That is the most human thing I have ever heard. Proud of you. Go scare some more aliens with biology. Maya laughed and pocketed the communicator. As she walked back to her quarters, she passed a viewing port showing the vast expanse of Station Zenith, and beyond it, the countless stars of the galaxy. Somewhere out there were hundreds of species, thousands of worlds, millions of potential biological interactions waiting to be understood. And the humans were about to teach the galaxy something important. That the most dangerous organisms are not always the biggest or the strongest or the most obviously armed. Sometimes the most dangerous organisms are the ones that learn to survive by turning their own bodies into battlefields and then calling it normal. Maya smiled at the stars and got back to work. After all, someone had to explain to the galaxy why humans gargled with what was essentially poison to kill mouth bacteria, or why they intentionally exposed themselves to ultraviolet radiation for fun, or why they consumed the chemical compounds that plants evolved as pesticides and called them spices. The galaxy was about to get a very thorough education in human biology, and Dr. Maya Rodriguez was going to enjoy every second of teaching it. This is Sleep Sci-Fi Stories. If you enjoyed learning why humans are walking biological war zones, there are more stories where that came from. Stories of humanity's resilience, our stubbornness, our absolute refusal to accept that anything is impossible. Subscribe and let us know in the comments what other aspects of human biology you think would terrify alien species. Because trust me, we have not even started talking about our pain tolerance yet.